Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our finance meeting, and I'll call it to order. And I need a motion to accept the minutes from the September 10th meeting. Moved by John Roselle, second by Dave O'Brien. All in favor, say aye. We're good. Approved. Okay, we're going to go right to real property because Laura was not available for her budget work with government ops, so we're going to do real property right now. Go ahead, Laura.
Okay, in looking at my budget, my revenues have pretty much stayed the same, will stay the same for the upcoming cycle, but I do intend to increase, and I have reviewed my fee schedule. We will be increasing some of our revenue lines. Things have not changed since 2014 or prior, and of course the cost of everything is going up to produce some of the items that we do produce. So we will have some increase in our revenues. They are not shown in the budget, but hopefully there will be some. Of course, with everything going on, we have less walk-in traffic, but we still are, by appointment, we still are taking in some revenue for aerial photos, SNAP certificates, and tax maps. So that's pretty much, right now, looking the same. My regular expenses, first my point one, same as everybody else, there's the increase. And I have nothing in the point two. The point four is the contractual. There is an increase in my telephone line, $240. There's also an increase in the dues and subscriptions by $50. I did put a decrease in my mileage of $1,500. The cell phone, we have a cell phone now for our assessor that covers a couple towns in Washington County. So that's more or less paid by the towns through the money that they pay for the assessment services. And the mileage has gone down, will be going down. We're not out and about as much as we had been in the past, and this was the first time that we had a carpool. So we're looking at just decreasing that mileage a little bit, and with a couple conferences maybe not being attended, that mileage will be cut a little bit. So.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Laura on her budget? Been a half.
Laura, where under the revenue is it where you have contracted with towns to do their assessment services? What line is that? Is that
A 1355 2389.03? That is for $53,000.
okay? Has your experience so far? Have you determined if you're doing it cost effectively? Are you losing money, or how's that work?
We're not losing money, especially this year because of COVID and everything going on. There were no building permits for a few months. My data collector was not out and out in the field doing data collection. So that didn't, that just was not going on. The assessor was still working, but it's just kind of like everything else this year. It's kind of hard to gauge. We'll see what next year brings with, when people are able to build and do more things.
Or were you referring to the actual reval itself? That's what I didn't get.
Oh, I'm referring to the county now does assessment services for some towns.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And do you have an update?
It's hard to gauge this year with everything going on for the first few months of the year when we would normally be out there, building permits, reviewing all the seats,
Okay, and can you update us on the money that was coming and didn't come and now is coming, just so everybody knows?
Yep, we're back on track with the reval. I spoke with the reval company a couple times, about every other day this last 2 weeks, and they are going to be back out in the field. They're going to be down in Fort Edward taking, they've already been back out there yesterday, actually, doing some data collection in the town of Fort Edward. They've done some work up in Dresden pre-COVID. They will be getting back up in that area probably after, when some more leaves fall off the trees so they can do a little bit more roadside versus going out a lot. So we are ready. We are back into the swing of things, or the company is back into the swing of things. and we are looking forward to moving along with that.
And you figured they'll all make it by the March 1st deadline?
Oh, this is a 2-year project, so,
So it's
no,
2 years,
this is
so-
2022.
Okay,
Yep,
it's 2022.
2022, so it's gathering.
So it's a March 1st deadline, it's just a different year.
Yeah, that's correct, yes. Yep,
But it's on schedule completely then.
yes, and we're also doing, we're also gonna be mailing out data mailings for the towns that we also do investment services in, so not only the 6-town reval, but we are gonna be getting all updated information for those other 2, and Argyle, we're out on a regular basis, those other 2 towns, so we're gonna have all that going on, between the reval, the towns will be, a lot of the towns will be getting some information from either the reval company or from us.
Sue Clary says she has no audio. Is that right, Sue? And she doesn't respond because she doesn't have audio.
What about everybody else, all right?
Yeah, John Roselle, can you hear me? Yep, John can. So for some reason, Sue does not hear us. I don't know why.
Text her to check the volume on her computer.
Yeah, maybe there. So
The call, forgot to call.
she took it off mute, so I didn't know, maybe she was going to say something. Oh, we can hear Sue. Hey, probably is the volume. You're probably right, Matt.
Al's got it.
Send her a text. Al?
Well, I got a change for you, but you're not gonna like it.
For which one of us?
For you. So
Okay.
Laura's revenues has $590,000 of grant revenue, and her expenses
Yeah.
has $535,000 of grant expense. Neither one of those can be in there. We have to wait and bring the unspent balance forward. So right now, the difference between that's $55,000 you're gonna lose.
Okay.
Neither one of those numbers can be in the budget. And it wouldn't
Very
be
good.
it wouldn't be the whole 590 anyway, because we're gonna claim some of that this year.
Good catch.
Okay?
Very good.
Sorry.
Did you write that, Chris? Yep. Got it. Very good. Okay, so if there's no questions for Laura, I guess we're good with real property.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we are on to the treasurer. Welcome back, Al.
So I'm glad everybody's sitting down, because for a change, I don't have to start the meeting with bad news. We got our,
Yeah, you did. We just lost $55,000. What are you talking about? You did start with bad news.
yeah, but are you okay if I replace it with 2.5 million?
Yeah.
So we got our sales tax deposit yesterday, which ended up being a reconciliation. So what that means is they went back and looked at all the money based on the reports that were filed that we should have been given and reconciled it against what we were actually given. The deposit to the county yesterday was $2.5 million. And when you look at that, it puts us back in the black for the year. So rather than trending $500,000 down from last year, we're now $84,000 to the good. So that's unexpected good news, and I'm happy to share it with you. I'm hoping that we stay at least flat for the rest of the year. That would be fantastic, because that would trend us around 21,750-ish, which is $500,000 to the good. So it's $1 million swing from what I projected to what might actually happen. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I'll use those words again. Matt, did you?
Yeah, I think the last time we had a reconciliation, I know we went down for a few times, so we don't know if that's in the books or not. I got Matt Hicks.
Yeah, no, I think I understand what I need to ask. We're not $84,000 prorated ahead of budget. We're actually $84,000 ahead of 2019 numbers this
Yes.
time.
Right, we're trending $500,000 over budget. Potentially.
You're gonna come back with bad news next month because you just can't be this rosy sunshiny guy. That doesn't make sense here.
All right, got good news, cut them off, no more than 12.
James?
Sound good, Pat.
Okay. Very good.
So the good news, Matt, is the only other thing I'm going to tell you is in the back of your reports that I sent out this morning, there are several pages. During the budget meetings, there's been a lot of questions about the fringe. So what I did is I extracted all of the .1s and all of the fringe from the budget requests, put that into an Excel sheet so that you could see them as a whole. So the last 13 pages of the packet I sent out this morning actually takes all of the workers' comp, all of the retirement, all of the health insurance, bundles them up and gives you a total so that you can look at year over year, and hopefully that makes better sense, because I know that we've struggled with why is the fringe this, why is the fringe that. I thought maybe this sheet would give you a more holistic look. And this is to Chris's point, why, seeing the fringe back in the departments isn't always a good thing. What, net cost is a real thing, and I believe in it. But for budget discussions, the fringe has obviously been a stumbling block. And I was hoping that this report would give you a better handle on the salary and fringe piece of the requests.
Any questions on any of that?
Well, that's good news too.
Yes?
So,
No, it is good news. If you start at the back page like we usually do, you see right away where we're at.
Well,
$1 million better.
if my mic wasn't built into the laptop, I would drop the mic at this point and be done. So.
Who's that behind you? Is that Helen Millett or is that Einstein? It seems like
It's a kinder version.
There you go. Anything else, Al, or is that it?
No, don't get used to it.
Drop the mic. Very good. County Administrator, we're at the budget amendment.
All right. Let's start with Resolution A in your packet. This is to appropriate $60,250 in Sewer District Number 2 fund balance out of the capital reserve to cover additional costs for some additional footage of sewer main on Feeder Street.
Okay, motion. Moved by Cassie, second by Lester, I believe. Did I have you? Oh, you're just having his coffee. What are you laughing at? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, B is another one that the Executive Director spoke to you about. This is the partially collapsed 18-inch sewer main on Rogers Street. Just shy of $140,000 being appropriated out of the capital reserve for those emergency repairs.
Okay, motion? Moved by Dave O'Brien, second by Cassie. Any discussion on this? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution C is to recognize $3,950 in insurance recoveries within the County Road Maintenance Fund, stemming from an insurance recovery from an accident on 153.
Need a motion? Moved by Cassie, seconded by Dave and Don. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution D recognizes the Homeland Security Grant for fiscal year 2020. This is one that is always split between the sheriff and public safety, and we set it up in Capital Project 113 to track it, and those are this year's amounts.
Okay, motion? Motion by Cassie, seconded by Don Ward and Dave O'Brien. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution E recognizes additional federal, 100% federal, COVID-19 stimulus funds for OFA. This is in the amount of $22,928. It will go into the family assistance line and be used to meet family needs that would normally qualify under the New York Connects program.
Okay, need a motion? Moved by Sue Clary, Cassie Fedler, James Griffith, Dave O'Brien. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right, Resolution F aims to appropriate $10,000 of general fund contingency into the postage line in Board of Elections. If you'll notice down in the budget impact statement, I put a little clause in there that we There are several pots of funding that have been made available at the Board of Elections. Some of them are still in the pipeline. And what we're doing here is trying to cover a voucher that the audit committee is going to see next week. There is another funding stream that will be coming that will cover this. So the plan would be, we just need to appropriate this money out of contingency so we can go ahead and pay this invoice for the mailing that had to go out. When that next funding stream is received, we will take 10,000 of it and replenish general fund contingency with it. So this is essentially an intra-fund loan from contingency until that funding stream comes through.
And then the money comes back to contingency?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Motion. Moved by Sue Clary, second by Cassie and James. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Resolution G sets your annual meeting for 10 a.m. Friday, November 20th.
Okay, need a motion? No one wants to have the annual meeting. Don't blame me. Moved by Cassie, second by Tom. Was that discussion, Dana? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution H will set a time and a place for the public hearing on the 2021 tentative budget at your annual meeting.
Okay. Moved by James, second by Cassie. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, Resolution I is going to set a public hearing for the administration of the Workers' Comp Fund. So, and that's the rest of your package. So I think we're at about that point. Yes, okay. What we would like to do is that within the Workers' Comp Fund, and we've had the discussion over the last several years, that the fund balance level in the Workers' Comp Fund has been going in a downward direction. By the local law that's included in the back of your packet, there is a catastrophic loss reserve fund that's established within the Workers' Comp Fund, and it's currently set at a limit of $1.75 million. Based on the way that the fund is administered and the way we have the supplemental backup insurance, you would need multiple catastrophic events to happen back to back to back, and we still probably wouldn't reach that $1.75 million. What the treasurer, the budget officer, and I have discussed is reducing that limit, which would help the solvency of the fund until the town, village, and county assessments catch up 2 years from now. So what I would propose tentatively is the following: to amend the level of that catastrophic reserve down to $1 million, which would free up $750,000 of the reserve. $500,000 of that I would suggest moving into the unreserved, unappropriated fund balance within the Workers' Comp Fund. The remaining $250,000 I would like to set up a large claim reserve that would be established via resolution instead of local law. And the idea behind that would be any claim, any individual claim over, let's say, $30,000 or $40,000 would be paid out of that reserve and then entered into the regular chargeback formula. But the idea being, when we take the larger claims out of a dedicated large claim reserve, it will keep the unappropriated, unreserved fund balance within the operating fund at a healthier level, and then can be replenished via an annual contribution of some amount to be worked out later. So that's kind of the broad overview of what we're hoping to accomplish.
Would the 2 years actually cover that?
So the mechanism by which the 2 years would cover that would be to set an appropriation of a contribution to reserve within the Workers' Comp Fund. Now, historically, that was done from the general fund. There was actually, for years and years and years, like a $20,000 or $30,000 contribution from the general fund into that reserve. There could be some more discussion on that. My preference, I think, at this point would be for that contribution to come from the Workers' Comp Fund itself, because then it's shared by all the participants of the fund. But in the past, we did it from general fund, so I think there's some discussion to be had there.
But would the 2 years that we're usually, would that cover it anyway and bring it back?
Yes.
That's what so basically it doesn't change anything, just the availability of the funds at the moment. Okay. Is there any other questions?
And you're rolling the dice that we're not gonna have any catastrophic issues in 2020.
No,
This
we're
year.
not rolling the dice that there won't be multiples back to back to back.
Yeah, right,
There's,
and you're doing that in 2020.
that's pretty ironic.
It can happen anytime.
It could happen anytime.
2020. I see your point.
So again, this resolution just sets the public hearing.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
I have a question.
Okay, I have a motion by Dave O'Brien, I have a second.
I'll second it, so.
Second for James, go ahead, John.
How does that figure out for the towns? When you come up for figures that the town pays back, how does that figure?
So the movement of the money from the catastrophic reserve into the unreserved unappropriated fund balance will help avoid a large increase in assessments to the towns in the next budget cycle. What I'm proposing with regard to the large claim reserve really should not impact the chargebacks to the town, because again, any large claim that's paid out of that reserve will be billed back through the existing formula. So if you had a large claim, it would have the same impact on your rate that it currently does.
Does the town's assessment ever go back down after claims?
Yes.
Yeah, they go back, they go up and down, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Believe me, Hebron's been through it. We've been to the top of the ladder and we've been to the bottom rung, but we're near to the top of the ladder again.
I've heard that, Brian.
Very good. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Carried. Oh, let's see, next is sewer district, no, those are all covered. Public safety sheriff, how come I did that one doesn't? We did that. Okay, we're on the budget. Discuss the 2021 budget. So, I'll start off with the budget in general, since we've heard from most everybody, but we're gonna have to go through the finance piece that things will be, in this department today. The big thing is a little philosophy here. So I started off by dropping the fund balance that we use to $1 million, because there's always, or has always been, $1 million in breakage. And so basically, you use no fund balance if you use $1 million, because the breakage will cover that. The idea is, if we are in a 3-year spiral and we have no idea where COVID's taking us, we have no idea what the governor is going to put on us yet this year or next year, even though things look good right now, it also looks bad right now, and they're looking to maybe shut things down again. So I'm looking at it more of a 3-year catastrophic situation that hasn't turned as bad the first year, but we don't know what years 2 and 3 will be. So by going to $1 million in fund balance, we would have, in my mind, we could easily spend $2 million a year in fund balance if we had to during catastrophic situations. That's what fund balance is for, is to help you survive those things. And that would take us from an $18 million fund balance to a $12 million fund balance. Not what we want to do, but what we could do and still carry on our county work and appropriations. So with that in mind, according to what the governor does, if he takes money from things we still want to do, we can appropriate fund balance to make sure we still do them. Or if he changes the rate, that our rate is now a bigger portion than it used to be, we can still make those things happen. And we're going to have to play that by ear as we hear. And I got to believe this is going to happen well after, election and maybe not even until part of next year. We don't really know. So that's kind of where the philosophy is as to where things are set, is to still make things happen that are necessary for county government to do. And with that, we will go to the stuff that's under Finance Committee in our index.
Okay. We'll start at page 1.
Well, let's see if we're ready to talk now, so that was a million. So cover down.
You already got it done, folks.
Vans.
Page 90.
Page 90 is the vans.
Al, do you want to cover that or you want me to?
There's not really a lot to say. We've got the renewal of the ban out there for the county road projects and the ACC NSTEM project. The budget, of course, will have the statement of debt attached to it, so you'll be able to see the numbers in more detail. And I can get that out to you sooner than later if you want to look at that. Not really a big story there, other than the renewal rate came in considerably higher than we projected it was going to be. Hopefully in March, when we renew again, things will be back to some semblance of normal. One of the other good things that happened this year, at least is potentially good, they extended the amount of time that we can renew the bans. So before you could only renew 4 times and then you had to go long term. They've extended that now. So where we might have had to start paying principal on the ACC NSTEM, we'll be able to kick that out a couple years until we find out a little bit better how things are shaking out. So we bought a couple more years of renewals on the bans where we're going to pay interest only in a very small piece of principal. So that's potentially while maybe kicking the can, we need that can kicked for a couple years till we know better what's going on. And out of
But
the,
ideally it'd be when we get the best interest rate, right?
right, we can always pull the trigger sooner, but it's nice that we have the option.
Yeah.
Okay. The other good thing is there, you'll notice that we're not doing county road right now, but in the county road fund, we didn't budget for her principal payment because that money in the capital project was for County Route 113, the cash flow, because we had to spend the money and then wait for it to come back. With that money now repaid from Marshelli, we'll just retire that debt. So the county won't bear the burden of the principal. We'll pay the principal back out of the project.
Okay, very good.
While we're right there, it's a little bit further down in your index, so we can just skip up to the debt service, which is right above that in the 9,700 department. That's really the same thing. That's long-term debt. Those are our payments. They kind of are what they are.
And that's paid for with tobacco.
You got Dana half, Brian?
Go ahead, Dana.
Back to the 9,900 pooled unallocable. Isn't that where the county auction real property is, 9,900 pooled? What page is the revenue? Or is that not the right number?
2021 is the revenue of pooling.
That's expense right there.
Yeah, 2021 is the page, Dana.
So it's page 20, about 3/4 of the way down. The account is 9,900.1051.
And you can see we have it zeroed out.
Okay, that's because of COVID, correct? We can't do any. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Well, we can't do any for 2020. It's a possibility we can do one for 2021, and then it'd just be additional revenue we didn't budget for.
Correct. Again,
Right.
just trying to keep with the budget officer's philosophy of ultimate conservatism, and just saying there's
You
so
even
much.
had trouble saying that.
There's just so much uncertainty. We said let's just budget zero, and then, like you said, if it happens, it happens. That's great. We can stick it toward fund balance or whatever. Going back to our regularly scheduled.
Dana, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
But previously, underneath the treasurer's revenue, doesn't the treasurer get revenue for doing the auction?
No.
Because there was like revenue for redeemed properties and things like that. That's not how the treasurer gets a charge back for the work he does?
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
Sue Clary.
On the debt service for the jail, the principal and the interest, is that a 20-year or a 30-year, no?
My memory is it's over in 2023, Sue, but don't quote me on that. I'd have to go back and look at the schedule. It's almost done.
Thank God. Thank you.
Nice. Because, just to remind everybody, PV Legacy's all coming back too, so, to the general fund.
Yep.
So, it will help that they're on the same course. Very good. Go ahead, Chris.
I'm trying to think the most.
There was another one on page 90.
Yeah, you want to hit those while we're here?
Right over here, yeah.
Yeah, we got a couple here. Okay, so, on 90, let's go to interfund transfers, which is down about a quarter of the way on the page. It's your 9,000 department. There are only two in this year's budget. The big one, obviously, is the 9.428906, to County Road, supports the DPW operations. And the bottom one there, the 9950.01, is a transfer to capital projects. Currently, that's at $168,848. In discussions with the budget officer, that was kind of what was available at the time. And it gets us close. We're waiting on the final engineering number. But based on the current balance of Capital Project 125, that would get us close to being able to afford the roof on the Burgoyne Avenue School. So I think the plan at this point is for the budget officer to work for the next week, 10 days to get the tentative budget numbers solidified. After that, there will be a conversation with the board about what the capital plan is looking like. In all honesty, we haven't, given the financial uncertainty, we haven't added anything new to the capital plan. So it's really just a kind of what was already in the hopper. What can the board prioritize? What would you like to do? What would you like to try to put on hold? So right now it's kind of earmarked in there, and if everything comes to fruition, it would give us just about enough to do the roof. But I think there will be more discussion with the board as to whether that is the ultimate priority of the board in 2021 or not.
And so the capital plan will come out at the November finance meeting.
Yes, sir.
John Rozell.
2 years ago, when we purchased the school, I thought we set aside enough money for the roof. Because obviously we can't do anything inside much more than what's done without the roof repaired. But that money was moved.
Roughly at the time, sorry, Supervisor, roughly at the time that we purchased the building, we scraped together and had about $2.5 million in the capital plan, which would have been enough to replace the roof when we got to it. We had made some plans and moved priorities around in order to move things forward as we did the engineering and got ready to do the roof and waited for BOCES to be out and whatnot. Where our plan went slightly awry was that we had planned on between $300,000 and $400,000 in annual interest revenue to be placed into the capital project. Obviously, that went completely off the rails in about February of this year. If we had continued to maintain that interest revenue at the level we were getting and thought we might get, we probably wouldn't need this $168,000. But you are correct. At the time we had it, we did a number of other projects that also needed to be done. But that, yes, I think at this point, from my humble opinion, the roof would be our next largest priority.
But there are other ones on that list that we need to look at too. Go ahead, John.
Well, I feel the roof, the longer it goes without being done, the worse it's gonna get. It's just gonna keep costing more and more and more. That's something that we have to take care of and come up with the money to do it.
Yep. Thanks, John.
Okay, so that was interfund transfers. Let's jump back one page real quick to 89. We'll hit on the budget officer's favorite. That is Department 8745, Hudson River Black River. As of now, we have not received any official notification from Hudson River Black River that our assessment has changed. It's out there. We're through the settlement. I would expect to change at some point. We have received absolutely no communications as to what that might be. So for now, with no information, we will keep the appropriation flat at $138,000 and change.
Can we pull a Governor Cuomo and send them a letter saying we're gonna hold back 20% because it's been a bad year?
Sure.
I like that idea.
Okay, and trying to decide best way to do this. We can go back to page 90. And we can hit at the bottom of the page there, the pooled unallocable expenses. So this is not the same magnitude that it was in years past, and we've been over that ad nauseum, that those fringe benefits have been spread through the departments instead of living down here. That being said, there are some fringe benefits that do not get allocated to each department. That's what you see on the very top of page 91. But those are in keeping with the reduction in health insurance expenses for retirees under the age of 65 through the changes that we made with our health insurance carrier. And for our retirees over 65, it was that 14% rate increase that we just want to continue to reinforce as a one-time thing based on decreased utilization during the COVID shutdown of our Humana plan, which is the Medicare Advantage for retirees over 65. Are there any questions on those lines there in the pool unallocable expense?
I think you said increase, but you meant decrease of 14%.
I did, thank you.
Okay.
I'm not used to saying that with health insurance, so I
Yeah.
don't break myself up.
Well, I just wanted to make sure we didn't confuse anybody.
Thank you.
Very good.
Okay. I just lost my page. So,
Sales tax is 47.48.
I have a page,
yeah, why don't we go to page 47?
47's got a lot.
I have a page
47.
90. I have a page 90 question before we come off 90.
Sure.
Top of the page, 8750, agriculture and livestock, 391,000. Can you give me an example of what kind of an expense?
Cooperative extension.
That is our contribution to Cornell Cooperative Extension. That's the only expense in that line.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. We go on to 47?
Yep.
What do we got on 47? Okay, so we'll start at the top of page 47 in Department 1910, which is unallocable insurance. So basically, that's our NYMER cybersecurity policies, other things that we don't break out to specific departments. You'll see there is a $12,000 increase on a $390,000 budget line. That's based on the information we've gotten from NYMER as to what the tentative rate changes are. There were actually some decreases and some increases. Keeps being that officer's liability. You guys need to behave better, apparently. That one keeps going up on us. Next department is 1920, county officers' dues. That's our NACO and NISAC memberships for the county. 1930 is judgment and claims. So we hit on this sometimes throughout the year, but under our general liability insurance with NYMER, we have a $25,000 deductible. And in the past, we've kind of wavered back and forth. We were running really good for a couple years, and so we dropped the appropriation to just cover one deductible. And then I think we had 2 or 3 years in a row where we had to appropriate extra money because we were having more than one deductible. So this year, we had appropriated for 2 deductibles. We've only used one. I thought, again, trying to be conservative, we'd just keep it with 2 deductibles. So that's where that $50,000 number in that line comes from, is it covers us for 2 complete deductibles.
Or something.
If we don't use the deductibles, does that just roll back into fund balance, or is it set into a special fund that holds it?
Yep, nope, just goes right into fund balance. 1950, we touched on it there, the, treasurer, 1985 is the portion of our goodness that we give to all of you. Toward the bottom of page 48, contingency. Historically, and I think at least in my tenure, we've kept the general fund contingency appropriation at $120,000. Again, trying to keep with the budget officer's philosophy of why he set the appropriated fund balance at $1 million, the uncertainty going into next year, we tried to move that to $200,000. Just figuring that given the craziness and wackiness of the world, there's a lot more unknowns. We should try to budget for that. So the contingency that you have in front of you is up $80,000 to $200,000. Going right on is the Department 2490, which is community college tuition. This one I struggle with a little bit, to be honest with you. So right now, I think we're on pace, depending on what fall enrollment is like, which I really don't know yet. But if fall enrollment was equal to spring enrollment, we're on pace for about $640,000 expense this year, which will be a little bit over budget. So we bumped that up to $650,000 for next year. The numbers in each sub-account for the particular colleges, don't pay too much attention to that. What I do for that is I take the current expense as a percentage of the whole and then blow that through the new budget number. So if right now we're sending 24% to Hudson Valley Community College, it's 24% of 650. It's as simple as that. It's not sophisticated because really it's the aggregate number that matters. We got a report from SUNY last week that the college chargebacks changed. Some of them changed very significantly. I haven't had a chance to dig into it in detail. I know some of the college chargebacks went up in the order of 30%. Some were down a percentage or two.
What were ours? Is it the counties paid to ACC?
I don't have that from.
But you don't know what they got. I was wondering if there's an up or down.
I can report out to the board later on that. But there's also significant fluctuation in enrollment right now in the fall, and I have no idea how that's going to carry forward to the spring. So again, this is another one where there's just a ton of uncertainty about how this is going to shake out. So we bumped the budget up, expecting that prices would go up, and our current utilization trends were a little bit up. I have no idea if that's really going to play out or not. So let's see where we are next here. So we did judgment and claims, sales tax distribution. Okay, let's go back to page 20. So this is the pooled unallocable revenue. These are our big revenues. The first line you'll see is the account 1001, real property taxes. The $34,829,756 is the initial cap number, which was at that 1.68%. That number needs to come down about $2,500 right now because of the increase in ad valorem that the sewer district did. It also may come down more, I'm not sure if it will or not. I know it's coming down $2,500. It may change. It's always kind of one of the last ones that gets straightened out based on what other ones do.
That should be it, Chris.
That is, okay. I was trying to remember.
Thanks, Al.
To Mr. Half's previous point, the 1051 account is our auction revenue. We've zeroed that out to try to be conservative with the uncertainty on the current foreclosure process. Pilot revenue, that comes from real property. The number submitted by real property was $164,806. Interest and penalties, real property is at 1.5 in the upcoming budget. You'll see that's down $200,000. Not really sure what the current COVID is going to do to that. Again, trying to be conservative with revenues. Similarly, at the very bottom of the page, sales and use tax. $21 million is the number that's in there for a budgeted revenue. Up until this past deposit, Al and I were doing our own projections. We both do them different ways. Our minds work differently. We were coming to right around 21 million. We both felt pretty comfortable with that number. I don't necessarily recommend moving off that number, in all honesty, even though now, if we take that last deposit and extrapolate, we're looking at 21.75. There's just too many uncertainties, and there's too much going on right now. If we can make it work at 21, I think that's a great number, and it gives us some flexibility moving forward. Interest and earnings. So I alluded to that based on Mr. Rozell's question earlier in the meeting. We were up at 360 for a while. We dropped the budget in the amendment this year from 275 to 175. We've dropped it again to $100,000 for next year. And then you'll see that on the sales tax and also on the reserve accounts, because we get interest in different categories for those. Really don't know what the Fed's going to do, don't know what the interest rates are going to do. It's not looking great at the moment, so we tried to drop those numbers. Not budgeting for any minor sales or sales of property or anything like that, since we don't have any in the works. OTB distributions, I don't know. I'm waiting for the quarterly payment from OTB to come in. I heard that the handle at Saratoga was extremely high this year, even though there were no in-person attendance. I don't know. I think that handle went directly through NYRA on their NYRA Bets app and not through OTB. I don't think we're going to get a cut of that, so I don't know. OTB was struggling dreadfully before COVID, and then the parlors got an uptick of activity. I don't know what to expect on that OTB, so we basically dropped it a little bit, and I really don't know where we're going to end the year on that. State aid, other governmental support is one of those completely non-illustrative account names. That is our Rivers Casino distribution. So we get a chunk of the gross profit from Rivers. We got 420 in 19. We would have been on pace to be a little bit over that this year, right around 420 again after that first quarter. And then Rivers was closed for more than 6 months. What has yet to be seen is if there's all sorts of pent-up gambling demand that is now being satisfied, or likely because they had to take half their slots off the floor and they can't have the capacity, their revenues are probably going to be down. So with that in mind, we cut the revenue from Rivers in half for next year. We dropped it to 200,000. I hope we're dreadfully wrong and it comes in at 650, but there is just no way to know on that one. State aid, other governmental support raised the age is a little bit better descriptive wise. We kept it flat. Our plan is tentatively approved by the state. We don't have an official number from DOB yet, so we'll just keep that in for what it is.
But that's not even going to be close.
Probably not.
It might be 10% of that.
And then interfund revenues right now we have budgeted at 0.
Back to raise the age, what do you really think that's going to be?
35 maybe.
Okay, you're a little higher than me, but that could be right. Okay.
Okay, are there any questions on any of that pooled unallocable stuff before we shift funds?
So Clary?
Chris, on the sales tax with the increase of information that we just got this morning, these numbers, you're going to keep these numbers the same?
On the sales tax, yes. Is that what you were asking?
Yes. Yeah, because that's quite an increase. I mean, it seems like we've got, the local towns could appreciate having an increase.
Yeah, but you'll get off the actual anyway.
Yep, so that your distribution is not impacted by what our budget is. Your distribution comes off the actual. And what it does to us to try and be as conservative as we can with that sales tax number is it's such a variable source of revenue, right? It's highly volatile. If we had another shutdown or something happen, that could go right back through the floor. There was also a very dangerous precedent set in April of this year where the governor got his nose under the tent flap and is now raiding our sales tax. So I think it is in our best financial interest to be as absolutely conservative with that number as we can.
So as a town, what numbers do we use?
Your revenue, on the revenue line, what page is it on?
I'm looking at it. It's on page 48.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
that's our number.
That's your number for your 2021 budget.
Gotcha.
Al will give you your number for your 22 budget late summer of next year.
Cause it's all off actual.
Right. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Not seeing any other questions or sensing rotten tomatoes, we will go, all the way to 120. So on 120, so this is our MS, this is our health insurance fund, our MS fund, right? What I would like to do if possible is, let's just go to the totals on page 121. And really, the most important thing is to look at the bottom of the 2020 adopted, 9.118 million, and the 2021 departmental request at 6.2. That is the bottom line of the questions that Mr. Hicks kept asking of why things were down, why things were different. And how I can try to justify that number is if you go over to 122 and look at the expense totals. Our revenue and our expense have not matched for a while. Our revenues have been higher than our expenses. We built up a significant fund balance in that account. For all the reasons we've talked about multiple times during this meeting, after some long discussions with Sue and Al and Brian and I, we decided that this was the year to try to more closely match our revenues to our expenses within that account. And then looking at some claims data for the first part of this plan year and the last part of last plan year, I feel pretty comfortable with the numbers that we have in there. That's going to give the county and the employees some relief on the health insurance contribution in 2021.
Any questions on that? Al,
Brian, I wanted to thank you and Chris for your approach on the MS fund. The way that you have it budgeted now, what I like about that is if we find out in April or May that Empire bought the business and we have a significant increase of like 7, 10, 12%, we have a healthy enough fund balance in the fund that you can now use the fund balance in the fund for rate stabilization. So thank you for taking this approach.
okay. Day and a half?
Chris, you said that there's quite a difference between the revenue and the expense, but on my budget, it shows that they're both the same, 6.2 million. What line?
Look at the actuals.
Look at the actual.
18 and 19 actuals are the differences.
Yeah, so if you look, if you're on page 122, Mr. Haff, the third of the way down in bold, it says MS self-insurance, health insurance totals.
All right, so
That
500.
1.2. I'm sorry, what was that?
All right, continue.
Okay, so rather than look at this year's budget, because we have to have the revenue and the expense match in this year's budget, look at the previous year's actuals. And you'll see in 2018, we had a $1.2 million surplus. In 2019, we had a $560,000 surplus. This year, you're not going to see it there. I think we're going to be $1.2, $1.3 million surplus. So that's what I was referring to, is that the actuals over the last several years, we've been taking in more revenue than we've had in claims expenses. That was one of my big arguments, and Al was involved. Al and Melissa had to sit through some uncomfortable meetings with me and the insurance carrier, where I really tried to explain to them that our claims number is not 8.2 million, it's not 8.6 million, and they didn't believe us. So it's really about 6.2.
And they finally got there though.
Well, it's a different carrier. Our carrier never got there.
But our new carrier got there so that you understand that we're not doing this to our old carrier, the new carrier got there.
Correct. That's why we have a new carrier.
Okay.
Well,
Go ahead, Matt.
potentially this year, we'd be over $1 million in net ahead, coupled with the $500,000 from last year and 1.2 from the previous year. How healthy is that fund balance?
It's very healthy, and one of the things, we've had a number of discussions with the board. I think the carrier and the broker wanted us to go self-insured. The only way you can go self-insured is to have an extremely healthy fund balance in that fund. We've had a number of discussions with this board, and this board is not comfortable with going 100% self-insured right now. And frankly, I didn't feel that it was really correct to continue to grow that fund balance above where it is. There is an extremely healthy fund balance in that fund right now. And I think that if there was ever a time for us to give some relief to the employees and to the general fund, now is the time. And to Al's point earlier, that's what we're trying to do right now.
Any other questions on that? Very good. Did that complete?
I think that
completes
wraps us up.
everything on budget until the tentative. And we haven't quite come with a date on that, but you'll see that before too long.
Brian, did you already do the workers' comp?
We did the reserve, is that what you mean?
Okay, so, okay.
We talked about the reserve. I didn't go through the workers' comp fund budget in any kind of a detail. Does the board want to do that, or?
Yeah, I think it's probably good.
Okay.
122.
So starting on 122, you've got the workers' comp revenue. That's just broken down into the assessments for the town, county, and village. That goes through the somewhat laborious formula that we go through 2 months before now when I hand out the complicated sheet. We've got very minor interest and earnings. There's some insurance recoveries and refunds prior year if that happens. That's the revenue in a nutshell. Really, it is those assessments that come out on the sheet that I give you in July or August that Sue does. The expenses, we've got some direct operational expenses. That's the $286,000 on in the first section there. Program expenses of $1 million. That's our claims, right? So that's paying workers' comp claims, medical benefits, those kind of things that come through. This 1721 is the reserve contribution that I was alluding to earlier. In the past, that always came from, I believe, general fund into that large claim or the catastrophic loss reserve. If we reinstate that, I would consider putting it right there so that it comes out of the fund. And that, in a nutshell, is workers' comp.
Are there any other questions? John Roseau?
Throughout this budget hearing, I haven't heard anything about what we have lost or if we're still losing the state revenue from the Medicaid. That was supposed to hurt us $850 to $1 million a month, was it?
That was cash flow, not reduction.
Yeah,
So that was, go ahead, Al.
Yeah, I'll be best to answer that.
I was just gonna, the cash has started flowing again, John. Maybe not to the extent that it was, but we have started seeing payments come in. There has been the 20% reduction against those, which is what Chris kind of prognosticated was going to happen 3 months ago. So,
Okay, so we've lost on that.
we've lost about 55,000. I think the commissioner reported out.
Yeah, and as of right now, unofficially, not in writing, so take it with a 50-pound bag of salt. But what we're being told at the staff level is it is a 20% withhold on claims going through DSS that OTDA is expecting we will ultimately get that 20% back.
I think he's holding out to see what the federal government gives him, John.
Yeah.
Sue Clary?
I said, isn't that the federal portion of what they pay for Medicaid? That they're holding back?
No, so the funding stream that we're talking about is our monthly claim at DSS.
Right.
That monthly claim has a component that's federal and a component that's state. Our Medicaid cost is just a straight weekly share that we pay. There isn't like a federal reimbursement against our Medicaid share.
But the state gets federal reimbursement,
Yes.
right? So we're political
One of only-
pawns.
Yeah, we're one of only 2 states, I believe, where the county pays a portion of Medicaid. It is truly a federal and state program that we have absolutely no control over.
Well stated, so, we're political pawns.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay. Any other business?
I think I
That Leslie's,
Oh,
advising them of the terms and conditions.
there you go.
Would you hold that for me? Okay, so we've got a notice from the Board of Elections. We need to tell the board about the terms and conditions of a new HAVA grant, which is the Help America Vote Act, coming through Board of Elections. Board of Elections is applying for reimbursement of these funds. I'm nowhere near as good as Debbie, so I'm not going to read these. I believe these were sent out to the board. You can review them and ask any questions. They are standard terms and conditions for a federal grant.
You need a resolution passed out of this committee today?
No action required.
No, this is purely an FYI.
We just had to know. You were just wanting to hear what we had to know, weren't you? Okay, is there anything else to come before this committee?
I've got a
Any
couple others.
questions? You got a couple others?
I got a couple others.
What were the others?
First one, Durham Transportation Contract. This has been kicking around for a couple cycles now. I brought it up at Health and Human Services. I had a conversation with Roger about it this morning. So we still have some back and forth to do with the vendor at the staff level. And specifically, whether it's a contract extension and how they are doing, as a reminder, they've increased our rate by 8.5%. So the way the contract is structured is there is an annual CPI adjustment to their rate. The CPI this year was negative, so their rate should have gone down. Instead, they came back to us with a renewal request for an 8.5% increase. Their increase is based on their additional costs due to the mandated COVID requirements. This is the only vendor that will provide this service. We have gone out to RFP recently. They were the only responder. One of our hesitation points is we don't really want to sign a contract extension at the new rate and then have that rate become baked in, right? If COVID goes away and then we're still paying 8.5% off. So Roger and I were talking about the strategy of how to accomplish that. So what I was hoping the Finance Committee would be receptive to would be a formal waiver for the RFP requirement to the procurement policy, because they are literally the only vendor, and the last time we RFP'd it, they were the only respondent. And then authorization to enter into a new contract with them. That's kind of the highest level of approval you guys can give us, and we'll try to negotiate something under that. But I just wanted to have the conversation with you all, get the waiver in place, get approval to enter into a new contract, and then whether it's a full new contract or it's an extension of the existing contract, but with a COVID surcharge that goes away at the end of the pandemic, however, Roger can structure that with the help of public health. I just want to get that approval in place so we can soldier on.
So this will be a one-year contract, because that was the last of the contract, or will it be significantly different? That's what I.
So if we end up being able to work out an extension with the COVID surcharge, it would be 1 year. If we can get a lower rate by doing a 2-year, perhaps we would do that. So I would ask for permission of up to a 2-year contract.
Okay. Moved by Matt Hicks, second by Dave O'Brien and James. Anybody else have any discussion on that? Day and a half?
I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. I have other.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
Okay, and then despite my best laid recalcitrant plans, I think I had mentioned to you earlier, I had no intention of doing a shared services plan this year because, well, let's be honest. I got a nasty gram from the state, they must have seen that, reminded me that there's a state law. So anyway, I would still be considering telling them no, but as the real property director indicated earlier, our multi-jurisdictional reval project is going to span multiple years. They have now changed their story, just so everybody's aware, and they're trying to tell us that projects have to be done in 1 year, which they didn't before, but I think it's because money's tight. So We will do a shared services plan this year. All that will be in it is the multi-jurisdictional reval. We're just kind of re-upping that every year so that we're still eligible for it. The timeline on that kind of stinks because of where we are. So what we likely have to do is set a public hearing, do one in November and December, and then have a shared services panel meeting with a public hearing at some point in early December or something. So it'll seem like a lot of activity that won't take a lot of time. Unfortunately, it's a lot of advertising for Debbie. But I just wanted to give you all a heads up on that.
Do we have to set that now?
Could you send send a motion to the full board, maybe to set a public hearing?
I don't know if they're board public hearings. I was talking to Sue yesterday.
That's a good point. I think they're shared services panel public hearings.
Right,
That's a good
and
point.
with Zoom.
That was when we all had to be there.
Yeah, we had to get Mr. Ferguson
On the
on
phone.
FaceTime, that's right.
You could have it either, I mean, you could get one for, you know, in case it's needed. I'm not sure which way it goes.
That's a good point. I hadn't
That's a good
thought of that.
point.
We were discussing it yesterday.
Okay,
Easy one. Very good.
yeah.
Okay.
Why don't you do one just in case? Just if you don't mind. Set a public hearing for the November board meeting for the shared services plan.
Okay?
Really? Moved by Mr. Hicks, second. James, all in favor, say aye.
Thank you.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you for indulging me.
Damn. I'm ready to do FaceTime again.
So then the last one I think we had was, a conversation that came up in personnel on Tuesday, and Chairman Hicks referred it here. Does that ring a bell, Mr. Hicks?
Yes,
Like 2 or 3 days ago.
It was.
but we have Mr. Half with an other first.
Oh, okay.
So I want to do Mr. Half's other before we go to an executive session.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Half.
Thank you. This is for my education of the budget. If you go to page 3. And it's for Al, 1325. What are all the tax redemption fees for? I thought that was for the tax auction. Is this if I come in and I need a 10-year tax or 10-year search on my taxes or?
No, for the tax redemption line, Mr. Half, if every November I have to file a list of delinquencies with the county clerk. If your name is on that list, an additional $5 goes on your parcel for that filing fee. That redemption line is for when you come in and pay that $5 to me.
Okay, but you got a whole bunch of lines there. You got
Yep.
advertising, that's for all the local newspapers.
Yep, so if you end up in one of the advertisements, there's a fee that goes on your parcel. If you get to the point where we have to abstract your parcel, there's a $150 fee that goes on. And those monies offset the abstracting fee that we pay. So there's it's part of interest and penalties. We just break it down by penalty.
Okay, what is the difference between tax redemption, tax advertising, and redemption posting? Aren't those the same things?
So posting is if there's a defect in the notices and the sheriff has to go and actually post the property, there's a $100 fee.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Wow. You made us feel all better. Thanks, Dana. Okay, go ahead, Chris.
You got Mr. Hicks.
Mr. Hicks.
Brian, I just want to get a question going forward, so we'll set the public hearing on the budget for November. You'll have the budget finalized before then, so we'll vote on the budget potentially in November, correct?
Correct.
So assuming it gets passed, then we'll know the not proposal, but the assumed amount going into the capital fund. When is the engineering company going to have the roof engineering information for us on what's involved and the potential dollars and cents on that? Is that something imminent this fall?
I think so. I'll have to double check with Matt.
Okay, so once we get that number, you'll know what the amount in there is.
Absolutely.
We'll have an idea from them what,
Not necessarily, because remember, what we're gonna get from the engineers, we're gonna get an estimate.
a budget estimate.
And then we still gotta go out to bid. and
Yeah,
who knows,
RFP,
so-
And that'll be next spring, for next,
Yeah.
in the winter, for next spring.
Yeah,
But once we get that engineering report and get a budgeted number, we can then have a in-depth discussion on short-term priorities, and long-term priorities in the capital fund. And
we're open to do
that could
that.
happen actually in December.
We want to do that at the November finance, the capital project.
To Mr. Hicks's point, I think what the budget officer and I had talked about was, I'd like to at least go over the capital plan with everybody at the November finance before you vote on the budget, right?
Well, before we go on the budget.
Right, just to go over it. But to your point, we may not have a hard, well, we're not really gonna have a hard number until we come back from bid, but we're not gonna have a hard estimate, if that's such a thing, maybe until after that meeting happens. So, but I think we can still have all the philosophical discussions about, you know, we think it's gonna be around this much. If that's the case, these are our other priorities. Is this still what the board wants to prioritize? And then if that is what wants to be prioritized, the budget is adopted with some amount transferred to the capital project, then once we get the numbers back, we can have those discussions.
So it's really, it's 3 steps. It's that step where we may not know, then the step after we get the budget number, and then the step after we get the bids back to know where we wanna go.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really true.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, now I remember what you're talking about.
So for reasons of, contract negotiation, we're looking for an executive session.
So I request an executive session from the board for, collective bargaining issues pursuant to the Taylor Act.
And I'll make that motion.
Second by Dave O'Brien. Second by Cassie. Everybody's good. All in favor, say aye. Okay, we're now going to executive session, but I don't know how we get there.
We're on it.
It'll probably be broadcast around the